It started probably December, grade 7, and I started getting really skinny, but I didn't notice, because when you look in the mirror, it's just like, you see what you think you are, and I thought I was fat. I knew I was never overweight, but everyone told me I was average. Like, I used to talk about it a lot. I was like, well, am I skinny? I'm not as skinny as her. She's like, no, you're totally average. Don't worry about it. I was so sick of being average. I just wanted to be thin like all my other friends and all the other people. But the weird thing was, the girls I wanted to be friends with weren't that skinny. They were just normal like me. So I don't know why. I thought, being thinner than them would be like, oh, I just want to be friends with you now.
My 18th year was horrible. My 18th year was when I got really, really sick. By grade 12, I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. You say anorexia and people, automatically you're stigmatized.
The reality is, 90 to 95% of women are unhappy with their body, and that unhappiness with their body sort of goes through a whole continuum of changes in how they eat, from restrained, which for young girls can sometimes be not eating as much or not eating particular types of foods, all the way to a variety of crazy diets. There's a great research study done by Susan Barr, who's a professor at UBC, that actually looked at the impact of restrained eating on health, independent of the actual eating itself. And so what she found is thinking about not eating something actually caused stress in the body, and that was associated with thinner bones, for example. So we know that just that constant thinking and worrying and calculating about food that happens is stressful to the female and can have a negative impact on her body, physically as well as mentally.
Life got really, really small, and I got really anxious all the time, and I wasn't a very nice person to be around, actually. I was restricting and exercising a lot, and just my quality of life completely diminished. I actually didn't have much of a life, truthfully.
When I look back on myself when I had the eating disorder, I realize how fragile and weak I was, in my mind, not my body.
When somebody becomes malnourished, the thinking does shift. And it's very hard for that person to get back on track with healthy thinking without nourishment, and that they really go hand in hand.
I was looking through old journals from when I had an eating disorder, and it was all negative. I kept writing, my hands are too big, my nose is too big, I have really bad eyebrows, and I'm too fat. It was just so much negative stuff, and that's probably when I was at my lowest weight, because my thinking was so distorted. I wasn't getting enough food to be able to even think properly. So yeah, being at a low weight, it does stuff to your brain.
Where were you when I needed a friend? Where were you? Where were you?
The lifestyle I had created, it seemed normal to me then, but now looking back, I can totally tell, I was dizzy because I was hungry, but I didn't think I was dizzy because I told myself that was normal. That's a big thing. I had to lie to myself all the time at the beginning, but then once you lie to yourself enough, you eventually believe it. So then I thought this is just normal.
I was sad all the time, and I cried so much because I craved food all the time. I'd have these thoughts of chocolate chips or cheese, and I'd think of myself just stuffing it into my face, and it made me so sad that I couldn't do that anymore, because I used to, I used to eat whatever I wanted. I was like, no, but I have better self-control than that. And yeah, it was really sad because I wasn't happy and I didn't know why, but I don't know, there's no one thing that I thought about that made me sad. It was just not being able to do the things I used to because I had to be skinny.
Their thinking has really shifted from a healthy thinking to an unhealthy thinking, is wanting to just be really an unrealistic weight. say I want to weigh the same that I did when I was 8 years old, because I was thin and pretty at 8 years old, and at 16 I don't like weighing this, and just the real obsessionality with numbers seems to be really prevalent, and people really wanting unrealistic goals that are really unhealthy and will actually end them up in the hospital or perhaps dead.
The death rate associated with anorexia nervosa alone is more than 12 times higher than the overall death rate among young women in the general population. It is estimated that some 8% of women suffer from either anorexia or bulimia. Among female athletes, the prevalence of eating disorders is reported to be between 15% and 62%. Given these statistics, we have to ask ourselves whether or not women are trying to achieve a body shape that is actually healthy, let alone possible.
If you look at sort of that prepubescent body versus an adult female body, there is a huge difference. We know that women, as they age, body fat levels do rise, and some of that is related to hormone levels changing in the body. The average woman between the age of 25 and 50, without changing anything in terms of how she eats or how she moves her body, so maintaining activity level and calorie intake, will gain about 25 pounds or so. For the average girl, in that year before she gets her period, she's likely to gain about 50 pounds. And some girls will gain more and some girls will gain less. And some of that, of course, is genetics. It's hard to compare yourself as an adult woman or even a girl that's gone through puberty already to that body type. But that 50-pound weight gain can be really overwhelming and scary, and leads to, in many ways, a lot of unhealthy eating behaviors in those early teen years.
The skinnier I got, the lower the number on the scale, the skinnier I had to be.
I remember I went through a time when almost every woman that I met, I could kind of see in them this secret shame. Like, they loved their bodies outwardly, but inwardly it's like they had this secret shame about who they were, and they had this core inside of them that they didn't want anyone to actually see what they really looked like, because they were unacceptable, and that came out as too fat.
When someone says they feel fat, it mostly means depression, because really most people, when they say they feel fat, they don't mean it in a good way.
We talk about sort of this feeling fat, and women talk about, feeling fat, I feel fat, when in reality we know that that is not a feeling. And Sandy Friedman, who wrote When Girls Feel Fat, can speak best to that, but basically feeling fat, she says, is a symptom of unhappiness with your life. So when somebody says they feel fat, they're unhappy with how things are going, because that isn't a physical sensation. You could be fat, but you can't feel fat. And I think many women in our culture feel fat.
Girls never say they feel fat when they're happy. They usually say it when they're either frustrated, angry, or depressed.
When I sit down and stuff, if I don't sit straight, I just feel much slimmer, because when I sit down, all my stomach muscles and stuff, it just goes down. It's really disgusting and just drives me crazy. I just feel fat and stuff. When I go swimming and stuff, I still kind of don't feel as comfortable as I would like to be.
The majority of females put a lot of time and energy into pursuing a body size that is essentially impossible to achieve, as well as harmful to their health. Studies show that 90 to 95% of individuals who diet are unsuccessful in the long term. Despite all the negative effects associated with restricted eating and dieting, we have to ask, what causes so many seemingly intelligent people to continue in engaging in a behavior that is unhealthy and set up to fail?
When somebody's not feeling accepted inside, they often go to the environment. I'm thinking age 8 or 9 is the age that always sticks out, where girls go through a shift of feeling maybe feelings of confidence to feeling that they're not so confident anymore. And then there's those aspects of looking to their environment for validation and for feelings of fulfillment.